Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to a low, deafening roar vibrating through your floorboards. You look out the window, and the entire landscape is vanishing under a violent, endless sheet of gray water. The streets are turning into rushing rivers, the wind is howling, and the local news announcer warns everyone that this rain is not going to stop for the next 3 months straight. Now look at your modern safety net. You adjust the temperature on your wall. You order food from an app, turn on a cozy lamp, and text your friends to complain about how boring the weather is. We view the seasonal monsoon as a minor, temporary inconvenience, a reason to stay indoors. But now, let's take a massive, terrifying step backward in time. Put yourself in their skin. Imagine standing in that exact same relentless, catastrophic downpour 10,000 years ago. There are no brick walls. There is no weather forecasting app to tell you when the sun will return. There is absolutely no waterproofing spray. The soil beneath your bare feet is dissolving into a dangerous, slippery soup of deep mud. Your campfire is dead, and the local predators are hungry, displaced, and moving straight toward your family. How on earth did our early ancestors face the raw, unbridled fury of the Earth's heaviest rainy seasons without completely washing away into the pages of history? We like to think they just got lucky. We picture them huddled under a wet rock, shivering, and praying to the gods. But the deeper archaeologists dig into the soil, the more they realize that everything we think we know about ancient survival is completely wrong. Our ancestors didn't just hide from the monsoon, they weaponized it. They used the ultimate weather crisis to force the birth of human technology. But wait, before they could build empires, they had to survive night number 1, and their very first survival tactic sounds like an absolute death trap. When the sky opens up and dumps millions of tons of water onto the landscape, the world undergoes a terrifying transformation. Low-lying valleys become instant, deep lakes. Hillsides become massive, fast-moving traps of rock and mud. For the earliest hunter-gatherers, finding shelter wasn't about comfort. It was a high-stakes chess match against gravity. Your first instinct might be to run deep into a cave, right? It seems safe, solid, and completely dry. But here's the first "wait, what?" moment of ancient survival. Running into the wrong cave was a quick way to lose your life. If a cave sat at the base of a slope, the cascading water would turn the entrance into a high-pressure fire hose within hours, trapping everyone inside a subterranean swimming pool. Ancient humans had to become master geological surveyors overnight. They actively ignored the large, comforting low caves and climbed high into the jagged cliffs, hunting specifically for elevated rock shelters with natural, downward-sloping stone floors. But look closer at the sheer genius of this design. The downward slope meant that even if the wind blew the rain inside, the water would immediately drain right back out the front entrance like a natural built-in gutter system, leaving the back of the cave completely bone dry. Imagine a caveman sitting next to a tiny fire on a high cliff, looking down at a flooded valley where giant predators are struggling to stay afloat, casually thinking to himself, "Location is everything." But wait, a cave only keeps you safe if you stay inside it. What happens when the community grows too large for the cliffs? What happens when you are forced to build a village right in the path of the floodwaters? The answer shouldn't have worked. In fact, it sounds like absolute suicide. As populations exploded in monsoon-heavy zones like South Asia and Southeast Asia, humans were forced to step out of the caves and face the rising water head-on. If they built houses directly on the dirt, the foundations would turn to mush, and the entire structure would collapse by week 2 of the storm. So they engineered a brilliant architectural plot twist. They stopped building on the earth entirely. Long before modern concrete or metal pillars existed, ancient builders used heavy wooden beams to elevate their entire homes several feet off the ground. When the massive monsoon floods swept through the valley, the destructive water didn't crash into their walls. It simply glided harmlessly underneath their living rooms. Think about the psychological contrast. While a modern homeowner panics over a tiny puddle in their basement, ancient villagers were casually sitting on elevated bamboo floors, completely relaxed, while an entire raging river rushed right beneath their feet. But this raises a brand new pressing question. What about the nightmare of ancient monsoon fashion? You can't stay inside your elevated house forever. Eventually, someone has to step outside to gather wood or check the fish traps. If you get caught in a storm today, you throw on a high-tech, lightweight rain jacket. But 10,000 years ago, your options were limited to animal skins or woven leaves. And here is a hilarious reality check. Wearing a heavy fur loincloth or a thick deerskin tunic in a warm tropical monsoon is the absolute worst fashion disaster you could possibly choose. Leather absorbs water like a massive, heavy sponge. It sags down to your knees, weighs 20 pounds, and takes days to dry out, causing terrible, agonizing skin infections. So, what was the grand ancient solution? They went completely minimalist. In many tropical ancient cultures, when the heavy rains arrived, people wore almost nothing at all. Think about it. Your skin is entirely waterproof. It dries instantly, and it doesn't get heavy when it's wet. When the stinging rain became too painful, they wove massive umbrella-like cloaks out of dried palm leaves or banana fibers. They literally looked like walking, talking thatched roofs. It wasn't exactly high fashion, but it kept their body heat trapped while the water slid right off their shoulders. But as the weeks dragged on, the danger shifted from the physical water to a much more silent, psychological killer. Let's escalate the stakes. The biggest danger of the monsoon isn't actually the physical water, the mud, or the terrible fashion choices. It is a much more silent, psychological enemy. Absolute isolation. When the rain doesn't stop for 40 days and 40 nights, hunting large animals becomes an impossible suicide mission. Animal tracks are instantly washed away by the downpour, the visibility in the jungle drops to zero, and here is a technical detail most people miss. A wet bowstring completely loses its tension. Your weapons literally become useless pieces of soggy wood. This meant that if an ancient village didn't plan 6 months in advance, the monsoon season wasn't just a rainy season, it was a starvation sentence. Ancient humans had to become absolute masters of preservation. Long before the first storm cloud ever gathered on the horizon, the entire community would spend months drying out fish, smoking meats over open fires, and sealing wild grains inside heavy, airtight clay pottery jugs. But now, imagine being trapped inside a small, smoky stilt house for 8 weeks straight, with your entire extended family, listening to the endless, deafening sound of rain on the roof, with absolutely nothing to do. No internet, no books, no distractions. The psychological toll of that intense boredom could easily break a community. But here is where history takes a beautiful, unexpected turn. Many historians believe that the long, isolating weeks of the monsoon were the ultimate catalyst for human culture. Trapped around the indoor fire, with nowhere else to go, the elders began crafting the massive, intricate mythologies and spoken epics that would eventually define our civilizations. Artists used the forced downtime to carve tools, weave textiles, and invent complex languages. The monsoon forced humanity to slow down, sit together, and think. It turned a brutal survival crisis into a golden age of storytelling. Yet all of this hides the biggest, most mind-bending plot twist of all, a secret buried beneath the mud of the ancient world that leaves modern engineers completely speechless. If you travel to the ruins of the Indus Valley civilization, cities like Mohenjo-daro or Dolavira that thrived over 4,000 years ago, you will find an engineering marvel that defies expectation. These cities sat right in the path of the most violent monsoons on Earth. But instead of fleeing to the hills, these ancient urban planners did something truly revolutionary. They built their entire civilization to act like a giant stone sponge. They carved massive, deep stone reservoirs directly into the earth and connected them to a sophisticated network of street drains, underground brick channels, and artificial lakes. When the terrifying monsoon arrived, instead of destroying the city, the raging floodwaters were gently guided, filtered, and trapped inside these giant underground storage tanks. This was a complete masterstroke of human intelligence. By capturing the absolute fury of the rainy season, these ancient engineers secured millions of gallons of fresh, clean water. They saved it up to keep their crops growing, their clean public baths filled, and their citizens perfectly hydrated through the blistering, dry months of the desert summer. They didn't just survive the storm, they captured it. They enslaved the weather to build the most advanced clean water civilization of the ancient world. When you look back at all these puzzle pieces together, you see a deeply inspiring picture of human nature. Our ancestors were never helpless victims of the elements. They were brilliant, adaptable problem solvers who looked at the absolute chaos of nature and found a way to thrive in it. They used their eyes, their minds, and the natural world around them to turn a seasonal nightmare into a source of architecture, art, and empire. The fact that you and I are standing here today is living proof that their clever stilt houses, palm leaf rain capes, and stone reservoirs worked perfectly through the darkest, heaviest storms of human history. So, the next time you sit comfortably inside your modern home, listening to the gentle pitter-patter of rain on your glass window, take a moment to look a little closer at the water. You aren't just looking at the weather, you are looking at the ancient element that forced our species to grow up. Which strategy would you choose to survive? The high cave or the house on stilts? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this journey brought a little wonder to your day, hit that like button, share the story, and subscribe as we prepare to step into our next historical mystery. Until next time, stay curious and remember to watch the sky.